Rolf. All right, Rolf, you're muted. Perfect.
There we are. We see me. Do we see? Oh, shoot. There we go. Good. We actually have me on the camera. Good to see everybody. Uh, Thanks for coming. I've really enjoyed seeing the Midday Connect talks. I've frequently gotten a lot out of them. I hope that this talk, you guys will get something out of it as well. The biggest thing I see sometimes is startups when they give their pitches, they say, we don't have any real competition, or we're so unique that there's nobody like us. And the short answer really to that is yes, you do, and including any number of things. It might be a real competitors. It might be a real a direct rival. It could be some free tool that's been developed. It could be just them doing a manual workaround. And uh, the e- the one that startups lose out to the most is just doing nothing or not being willing to change. The company's just decided we've got our way of doing it, and we're not willing to change how we're doing it right now. So that's something that needs to be thought about. Um, What I'm going to talk about today fits within um, one aspect of my instrument that I've developed. Every idea goes through four questions. One is viability. Is there a real customer pull? Second one is defensibility. Can you defend your advantage over time against copycats, particularly? Third one is feasibility. Can you, in fact, the build and scale what you want to do profitably. And defensibility plays a little bit on that because if you've got competitors, that sets the upper bound of the amount you can charge for your product or service. And then the fourth question is timing. And that's really kind of a lens that fits over all three of these filters. And that is the timing right? Uh, Viability, like the customer wants it now, or when you're going to be on the market, they want it now at that time. Defensibility is it's going to be defendable for a long enough time to make back your investment plus a nice profit. Feasibility is can you do it with today's resources, or do you have to bring in something new, or are you waiting for something new to be invented? Uh, when I worked at 3M, that was the case a lot of times that we'd be pushing the limits on things. Um, so basically, you can think of this as ideas come in the left side, they go through the screen, and then out on the other side, you get a go, pivot, or stop signal for each of them. A stop can be triggered by a failure in any one of these three categories of viability, defensibility, or feasibility. If because if it's not if your product idea or service idea is not viable, defensible, and feasible, it'll go off the rails for any number of reasons that I'm not going to go into the details on those here because I'm here to tell you about how to do competitor research. Um, but happy to talk to you guys offline on that if you want. The key thing is look for evidence before investment, and evidence trumps opinion. Those are the key things there. What we're going to talk about right now is competitor research, and that's kind of fits most neatly in the category of defensibility. And here's the tool for that. Um, there's four corners, uh, four questions run in order. First, we look at alternatives. Who else is solving this? Indirect, direct substitutes that you might come up with, or that might be out there. Uh, Workarounds, how are they coping right now? How's your customer coping with having that problem right now? Costs, how much is it going to cost? Does it currently cost your customer? And how much is it costing your competitors to provide their solutions? And I'll show you the prompts for these in a minute. Um, Fourth is patents or other IP trademarks, for example, come up as well. What's already claimed and where's the open space? I'm going to go through prompts for each of those four corners now. Um, Key thing to keep in mind here is that these prompts can be put into pretty much any large language model. Your results will vary depending on how well that model's been trained on your area. Sometimes Gemini is better, sometimes OpenAI is better, sometimes Perplexity is better, or Claude. I've used all four and gotten good results. Um, the best way to get good results is to turn on deep thinking mode on all of them, and yeah, deep research mode and deep thinking mode. So if you had put both of those together, you should be able to get good results. And also if there's like an option for web search in case that has to be manually enabled. Um, so alternatives, who else solves this? Um, the trap I've seen a lot of companies fall into is either they say we don't have competition, like we said, or they list two rivals who are maybe, they're tangentially related, and so they consider that they've done their competitor research and check that off the box in whatever competition they're in. Um, Whereas what's really important is to know what is the job you're trying to get done, what's the job your customer is trying to get done, and how what are all the ways they can get that done. So the prompt basically reads, you've got your product and you define who your customer is and they're achieving some outcome. And then the prompt is basically looking for every way that your customer can get that outcome today. This is why the deep research part really helps and the deep thinking. It does flesh these out better if you do that. And you might want to look for things that can get repurposed and similar outcomes, is what I call for in here too, because if we look at it, the example that I've got at the bottom of the screen here is Quibi. How many of you guys, by just quick show of hands, remember Quibi? Uh, all right. They spent $1.75 billion. It was with a B. Um, Wanted to compete versus Netflix when their real competitor was YouTube and TikTok. And people didn't sign up for premium short form content. And so the company went broke after 6 months. So basically, the lesson from that is to define your competitors by the job they're getting done rather than by the product category you think you're competing in. So, verification on this is you need to really confirm that each competitor and solution that comes back truly exists and does what the answer claims. I've had uh, one time I did some research on OpenAI and I said, hey, who are my competitors? And it came back with a list of competitors complete with website links and descriptions of what those companies did. And it sounded like it totally nailed what I was doing as a consultant. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm late to the party. I clicked on all those links and they were all dead links. Um, and then I said to OpenAI, come back with real companies this time. And then it did. And so I'm still here. Uh, so workarounds is the second one. How is your customer coping right now without paying anyone? the free workaround and the do nothing option beats most new products. Uh, Unless you're saving money, time, hassle, and on something significant that your customer really wants to have that pain relieved, um, you've got to have a superior product. And so this one looks at um, how customers solve the problem today without buying anything. So what are their manual steps or spreadsheets, free tools, internal builds? That's what they complain about, pulled from reviews and forums, uh, and link to the source. I can't emphasize that enough. Always ask for links to the sources, um, and direct quotes uh, from those sources if it can provide it. And the real question is the one underneath. It's really, are these workarounds painful enough that they would willingly pay for an alternative? Um, Scale Factor is an example here. They were a bookkeeping, AI bookkeeping company. They thought spreadsheets and bookkeepers were too painful, but they weren't painful enough for people to sign up for their service. And so it comes to mind, though, right now that I know of two other companies out there that are doing AI bookkeeping services, and they're making progress. They're making some headway on it. And so this underlines a little bit too how that timing factor can play in. That at the time, people didn't believe AI could help enough with the accounting, and that maybe now uh, the, the capabilities of the AIs have gotten better. So I'm just realizing that that particular example might be already out of date. Third is, what is it costing your customer? Um, for each alternative and workaround, give me the cost to the customer. What's the customer paying now? What's the pricing model setup and switching costs? Uh, don't make up prices. Uh, and then ask also, what are the competitors' costs and margins? It's amazing how much information this little prompt will get you. Um, but again, you have to confirm it. Um, Values and costs are something that it will uh, be very confidently, tell you very confidently, but be wrong at. So it's important to double check the numbers here again. And then the fourth now is patents, and that's what's already claimed. Um, People tend to assume their approach is novel without checking, uh, or they do a quick check and the keywords that they happen to throw into whatever patent search tool they used didn't come up with anything that read close enough to them. But with the AI tools now, especially Perplexity is what I found to be the best one. The current, as of today's date, June 23rd, right? Uh, at patent searching. If you include the word patents in there, what patents are important in this area, it will start actually pulling them out. Uh, does a good job at summarizing the patents, what's claimed, who holds it, and it can help you find the occupied space, and it can start helping you identify where the open space is, where the opportunities are. A case study that comes out is the iOS developers. Um, a number of them got sued by a company called LoadSys, um, which is a patent troll company that went after a lot of Apple's, um, the companies that were working in Apple's ecosystem, and suing them for some that they did in fact have patent coverage on, which is in-app sales. And so it's important. It scared a number of competitors, or a number of iOS developers went out of business because of that until Apple got that whole situation cleaned up. Um, the other thing with the results from this search is you want to confirm anything uh, using Google Patents or the USPTO, where you can look at the real patent document as well. So, um, the key thing to take out of all this is the AI can do a day, a week's worth of research for you in an hour, but you'll have to take that an hour or two of what you've saved from that week to verify what it says and check the references. I've done checking using one large language model to cross-check another one and tell me in the report, what in this report from Perplexity is suspect, or would make me think, should make me cause me to suspect that the numbers might be fabricated. And like one of them had 5 significant digits of pricing in it, and the AI called that out. So key thing here is you want to verify your competitor research. The key thing is you're not gathering it from scratch. You're just verifying what's there and confirming that each one exists and does what the answer claims. You check the prices and check the patents are real as well. So that last 20% is can't really be fully automated and may never quite get there because it requires an element of human judgment. And the large language models cross-checking each other is as good as interns cross-checking each other's work. They're going to be good, but they're not going to bring as much depth of experience to it as you've got. So uh, the method I do here is this is part of a bigger method, again, as I started out saying. And the good thing is you can compare company A, B, and C together in a portfolio, and one comes through the defensibility with flying colors, the other one generates an intermediate score, and you say, let's see if we can find a pivot or something stronger, uh, some kind of patent, some kind of economic moat we can build or add to the product that will help improve defensibility. And or like in company C, it might give you a red flag and you say, you know, we've got to go license this patent from Google or some competitor in order to enter this business. So I yeah, it's good for comparing product ideas to each other or companies to each other, especially startups, because each startup tends to be a one product idea company to start with. So it works well for those as well. I'm going to make the slide deck available after the talk here. I've also created a one pager that I've got in the upper right corner that will also be sent out with the deck. That it goes through the sorry, it goes through the prompts for all four um, corners. Uh, and then if there's any companies that want to talk to me afterwards, I got space for about 3 of them. Be happy to go through, run one of these corners on your company and see what comes up. And happy to take questions here. Yeah.
Love it, Ralph. Thank you. Thank you for this. So if you've got a question, you can drop it in the chat or you can come off mute and ask it. Okay, Ralph, I'll go with the first question.
Sure.
In one of your slides, you said you mentioned using the other models to test against it, but the downfall is it's like interns checking intern work. What are some workarounds, or you're saying do it, but buyer beware. So what are some of the best practices around having the other models check against each other?
Yeah, I've done consensus things where I've done reports from, or the deep research I've done through each of Perplexity, Claude, OpenAI, and Gemini. And then I've submitted all those reports to each one of them in a separate instance to say, find the consensus opinion and also tell me where their findings and recommendations might be suspect. And so it brings out a lot there. And I would say that gate takes it from 80% complete to maybe 90, 95%, because it does a pretty good job of catching numbers then like what I said, the one that was uh, reported to five significant digits on a price, it just was like, it shouldn't be there, or usually when people talk about a percentage, it's 10%, not 10.258%, you know. So does that
Yeah.
get what you're looking for?
Yep. I've already got my next question ready, but I'm going to pause for a second and let someone ask their question.
Looks like Barry might have one.
Yeah,
I can't see the
I,
hands. Go for it, Barry.
I've played with what you are suggesting here of having one check another, and it's interesting. And in certain, activities, I think it's a worthwhile exercise. I've also gotten a habit now and wonder what your feedback is of I'll ask chat to write me an article and to the best of its ability act like as if it's Claude. And it changes the way the content comes through. And I went, well, this is kind of interesting.
Huh. I'll have to experiment with that one. That one's a new one to me, but it can impersonate people. You can say, write it as though it's Shakespeare doing this or saying this. Why not? They must know each other
Yeah,
as well.
somewhere
Because
in that data sphere.
yeah, yeah, interesting perspective there. I have not done that particular thing. I've generally introduced it is in these are the reports I've got. Please help me find the consensus of these. And yeah.
You tried using a third agent and say, I wrote this originally, and now Grok has, checked it out. Now look at both of them and tell me, what you got.
Yeah, and then you can do the reason that submitting the reports to each one again works is because it can look for consistencies, it can look for uh, inconsistencies, or like one model they might have called out different risks potentially, but one might overweight one or one might underweight a risk, uh, especially when it comes to competitors and patents.
Now, I've heard of case law being made up and in some of the results. Is that still common occurrence? You have to really watch for that.
I personally haven't seen that happen, but I'm also not somebody that does that on a daily basis. So, and I'm also somebody who all the reports I ever give to my clients say part of this has been AI generated and needs to be, needs to be verified before making any business decision off of it.
So
So,
either way,
and I'm
you're going
willing
to
to help do
personally
that
check it.
verification more, but it's critical if you're going to make a business decision off of it, or you're going to make a legal decision off of it. You really want to cross-check that that case exists, that the patent says what the large language
Right.
model is telling you it says, yeah, you want to find it yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
Rolf, do you mind if I add something there super fast from an attorney?
Sure.
So I'm an attorney that helps Summit Venture Studio. Actually, my name is Kyle Harvey, based out of Salt Lake City, and we use Claude, we use Westlaw, and we use AI in it. And still, even within Westlaw, that does case law, like it's training of its own model, it will put right cases. I don't know an exact percentage. I'd say 2 to 5% of the time, it will still hallucinate facts or say them in a way that is biased towards the prompt. So that's just the one area that even with us as attorneys, I'd say 95 to 90% of the time, it's killing it. It's doing great and it's super valuable. And I think they're getting better and better at not creating fake cases. But you have to be careful of how it interprets the facts based on they can have sometimes like a prompt bias or other things. So we even have to check that ourselves. So I'd say Rolf's spot on. Like, and I think this is going to get you even before you go pay an attorney, like 95%, even 99% of the way there. Like, this is so amazing. I love it because it's taking it out of you need to go pay $1,200 an hour to get someone to check it for you. You can do awesome work, get yourself in the ballpark as a startup. I would just be a little hesitant because we still see it. I think it was Baker McKenzie, the firm that represents OpenAI, recently had they got sanctioned because they hallucinated 12 cases in a recent pleading before a court of appeals. So it's
Ouch.
lawyers are still submitting it sometimes with hallucinations.
Yeah, and the larger your search comes back as, the harder it is to verify everything.
It
And
is.
I mean, that's I think we're going to see junior associates being hired back into companies again that have been eliminated because of AI. But I think we're going to see they're going to be needed to verify things. You know, real eyes have to get you have to see those results. So um,
Rolf, if you were to add a fifth corner, what would your fifth corner be?
for the competitor, it's sort of a line through it all, but that is what's the null option? How much is the null option worth
Okay.
to your customer? Because the switching, part of it's answered in the switching costs question. Another is, um, yeah, and also I guess the time factor. I didn't really put a time question into this one, which is okay. There might be a blocking patent right now, but when does that patent expire? There could be, yeah, and the other thing that we need to be careful about is Perplexity does a really good job with U.S. patents right now, but international patents is a whole nother um, area, particularly the Chinese patents and Japanese patents, where they've got a different system where basically every new idea they've got, they file that as a patent. And it doesn't really cost them anything to file it as a patent, and it doesn't have to be ever be looked at. Or, but it's a public disclosure of it. Um, but because of different language than I speak, and I've tried to read machine translated Chinese patents, and they've been awfully hard to interpret.
Hmm. This is great. Barry, we'll let you take your questions straight to Rolf via email or LinkedIn or phone. Thanks, Rolf, for coming in and sharing with us. This was great. I encourage everyone to look at the email that comes out from Summit and take advantage of the resources that Rolf has to offer. And we'll see you all back here next week at the same time, which is 11 a.m. Mountain Time here in Utah. See you then.
Thanks, Spencer. Thanks, Ralph.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.